Hello friends, Jov here, and this is Test-Driven Development Screencast, where we talk about fundamentals of test-driven development and high-discipline programming. So this episode is continuation on the inside-out test-driven development style, and if you haven't seen the first episode, I would highly encourage you to tap on the top right corner, check the episode so you can get more context and see what's going on here. Also, if you happen to like this content, please make sure to subscribe. So let's get started. In a previous video, we came up with a list of behavior that was interesting for us that we cared about at that moment, and we ended up um, just before implementing the working on the bad query part. So before we go ahead and working on a bad query, let's first define what a bad query is. If this was a real system, we would have most probably a specification on what is acceptable and what's not as a query. But just because this is an exercise, we can arbitrarily say that a bad query would be an empty query. And also a short query, which is, say, um, less than 4 characters, right? So that's going to be what a bad query is. And now let's go ahead and start working on it. Of course, we're going to start off by writing a test. And first, I will go with an empty query. And let's say we're going to expect. So the question is, what happens when I get an empty query? So that's the behavior that I'm working on right now. So I would get a message saying get query, for example. And that's gonna happen when I do search here dot get result. And the searcher is searcher. And I should search an empty query. So let's run now and see. I want to watch the test fail. I cannot stress enough how important it is to watch the test fail and make sure it fails for the right reason. Because if it doesn't fail for the right reason, there is no point in working in continue to working to building the test. Um, sorry, it wouldn't make sense to continue working on the actual code on the behavior if the test fails for the wrong reason. Um, because if the test doesn't fail for the right reason, that we are not gonna catch the behavior that it is supposed to when a possible regression comes. So now here we say that we are expecting a error, which is a bad query, but we get no match found for nothing, which is pretty bad because the error message, if it is no match found for nothing, it might be quite confusing. So we need a dedicated message for that. So how do we make this pass? Um, the easiest thing that I'm thinking of would be if query blank, then the result is this, else the old thing, which was working fine before. And it works. Okay, let's check that in. Can handle an empty query. And I think next we can now think about a short query. What happens when I have a short query? I should get an error saying also bad query, it's fine. Get result. By now, I guess you are freaking out. Why am I not dealing with this duplication, initializing the searcher in each and every test? And that's going to happen in a dedicated step for it. I don't want to deal with all the things at once. I want to do them step by step. So bear with me. Searcher, and then I add searcher.search, let's say ABC. And it should fail, right? And it fails for the right reason. There's no match found for ABC, but I don't want to trigger any search. I don't want to go into here if the query is short. So in essence, I don't want to waste any resource if the query is not acceptable. So I can do something like queries ABC here just to. The idea is to fake it till I make it. So just um, put anything there that might work, and this works. So let's check this in first and deal with short query as long as it's ABC. AB, cool. So I think for now I'm good, but I cannot check this in sort of mark it as done because um, I'm not dealing with actually with a number of characters here, but with hard-coded strings. So actually, I'm gonna leave this as a step that I'll look at later. But for now, before I start working on the code and start refactoring and deal with the problems, first let's look at what are the problems and how we are gonna start digging them out, and then um, what's gonna be how we're gonna approach the whole thing. So first, there is a bunch of duplication happening here between. So first, there is duplication within the test. Then also there is a duplication between the test and the production code. Essentially, we have in the tests we have some data that is duplicated in the production code, and that's not okay. We have to deal with it. A good approach to take here is to push the data up the call stack and keep abstractions down the call stack. So when I say up the call stack, it means more towards the entry point of the program. So in this case, the tests are the entry point, or in a typical Java application, a main function would be a entry point. So there is a whole chapter, I guess, in the Pragmatic Programmer book that explains this. But actually, it's a good thing to push, whether it is data or configuration or whatever, push it up the call stack and then keep only abstractions down the call stack. So we said we are gonna deal with duplication. Um, and then another thing is to push the data up the call stack, which is sort of related to the first one. Another is here in the production code, I have here in the searcher, I'm doing a query validation, and also I'm doing something else. Essentially, I have two responsibilities here in the searcher, and that's not okay as well. So I have to. One part of the evidence is that I have these two things happening here, but another is here in the test that I have these last two tests. They live in a test case which is named as find one match test. But this one focuses on completely different behavior, and it should contain different behavior than what I'm having in these two tests, essentially, what I'm covering with them. So these two tests, they want to live somewhere else. And in that sense, I'm starting to think about, pushing the things out. So I have to separate the query validation. And what else? And yeah, and I think the most important, I think I would put first, is to deal with the primitive obsession. Um, so this is what we are gonna be focusing next. I think for now it's enough. As we go, we'll find out another things and we'll put them back here in the list. And I think this is no longer a test list, but rather a to-do list. And now let's close it and focus on the code. So what I meant about primitive obsession and why do I want to deal with it first? So here I'm using a string to get results back to whoever is using the searcher. Now the problem is that especially on Android context, I don't want to construct the whatever is gonna be displayed on the screen here because that's responsibility of the UI. Um, in a mobile context especially, and I guess the same would apply in a web application, we might have different translations. We might have localization on the entire application, and we might have different language for different region, let's say. And in that sense, if I construct here the error or whatever, um, it would be it's not responsibility of this component. I want to do that in the UI. So also, what we spoke about in the previous episode of this series, as well as the uh, uh, entire series of the outside in TDD, in the context of Android, what we want to do is expose some sort of observing mechanism from the searcher, and then the UI would observe rendering states. So we are going to just push states to the UI, and the UI is going to render whatever we push there. And in that sense, we want to make this, we don't want to work with a string here. We want to come up with some more sort of robust type that's going to be that we are going to send to the UI and the UI will render. So uh, that's part of the story. And then another thing is that from my experience, I why don't want to delay this till later, because I want to start decoupling the things and splitting them up. And if I keep this step for later, it's gonna be more pain, because from my experience, I know that if I working with Kotlin and automated refactoring in IntelliJ is not working as good as it was for Java. So many of the things are not available at all. And I'll have to do manual refactorings, and I would rather do that sooner rather than later, because it's gonna be easier if I do it now. So let's go ahead and first start with that one. First, I wanna see if everything is fine. I'm green, and let's see how we can deal with that. As I said, I have to do that manually. Now let's go ahead and do that. The first thing is I'm gonna start off by saying something like search state match. I just want to wrap the string into another type, and that's an automated refactoring that is missing for Kotlin. It's not there at all, and it's available in Java. They've been way easier. I would say searcher, um, search state. I don't know, or um, I would say result state. Get result would have been way better name, but because it's taken, I just have to come up with something here. And now let's go ahead and create the search state class. I'm gonna extract a separate class in the production package, but I'll make a new one dedicated for the data. Move it on the right side so we can watch. And this is gonna be a sealed class. So the search state is gonna be sealed class that will contain all the derivatives there that the UI can render. One of which is a match. So let's go ahead and create the match. It's gonna be a data class, but it has to derive from search state. And now we also have to create this function which will return search state. All right. Um, and now now it compiles. If I run, it would fail because of the to do here, which essentially throws an exception. Let's prove that. There we go. So how do I go back to green as fast as possible? I'll just return here this thing because I don't feel comfortable refactoring in red. I want to do refactor in green. That's the first step. So essentially what I'm gonna do, what are the steps that I'm gonna take is bring the new thing, run the test, make sure everything works, then replace, again, run the test, make sure everything works, and then delete the old thing. Um, and I'm also thinking not to take intermediate commits because I just want to save a little bit time, and also I feel confident that I can do that in one go. So I don't want to, um, you know, do intermediate commits and then squash afterwards. Let's see how we can do this. First, I'm gonna split these two, and then I can create mutable live data of state. Again, this is something related to Android entirely. So the idea is to expose something that the UI can observe. That's why I need live data. And I would assign this to local variable. Now name this search state live data, let's say. Uh, and now if I run, I should be still green because I didn't do much that is changing the code. And first, I want to assign the match to the search state live data would be the match. And also here, instead of returning the match, I would return the value. So here I'm just initializing the value and then I'll return the value. Make sure I'm still green. I'm not. Let's see what's the problem. Yeah, the problem is the main looper because I involved live data here. So let's make that work. I have to extend with this. This is my extension, so I can work with live data. Cool. And next, I can inline. Oops, I can inline this one. I can move the live data out, and I can make it class property. Let's split for better preview. And the last step of this little part is, as you can see, I'm always taking baby steps. So I'm all the time trying to be in the green zone. I don't want to go to the red. Cool. And then this initialization should happen here. It should be still green. Cool. And as I said, I'm not gonna do intermediate commits. Now I can remove this one and I can duplicate this one here. But of course, I should work with a different value. Proof now that it's failing. I can do the same here. And it should work. And it does. So let's continue. This one would be a new one. Sorry. This one will be no match for coffee. And then let's create this one. State I just want to return back the query, which happened to be a bad one. Sorry, we don't have match for. Make sure now we're failing. Yeah, and we'll do no match for query. Cool. And next, let's maybe make the code smaller here so we can see better. I can delete this one, but also I'm thinking to improve a little bit on this one here. Yeah. Make sure everything is still. Yeah. And lastly, let's deal with bed query. So that's gonna be assert equals search state bed query searcher state, and a bed query would be an object inside a search state, but also type of search. So yeah, and if I run, it should fail, right? And now let's make it pass, and that's gonna be search live data value is bed query. Back to green, delete this one, and I think I can also replace here, run, make sure everything's green. Cool. And next, I think I can now, this method is not used, we can delete, and also assigning value to the result, and also the result property of the searcher itself, and that should be still green. Awesome. Let's check this in. Let's right now address primitive obsession. And I think as a last step, let's maybe also deal with this duplication here. So I'll just move this up, and I think I'm gonna make it late in it. Why? Because I think that should work. I think I'm gonna be adding some arguments afterwards in the searcher, so I would better save a step for later. And now I can just remove the duplication and run now. I should be still green. Cool. And then let's check that. Oops. And I would say moved duplication. Cool. So next would be, I think if we go back here, I'm gonna mark this one. We haven't entirely dealt with the duplication, especially that's gonna be together with pushing the data up the call stack. Or maybe we can start working with the query validation first. But anyway, I think that's whatever we decide to do first. That's gonna happen in the next episode because we are already running around 25 minutes now. So let's close this episode. I think that's gonna be enough. Thank you so much for the attention and for the time watching this video. I'm gonna catch you in the following episode next week. Thank you so much and have a great weekend. Bye.